Hey there, so today we're going to be talking about the properties of operations. So we're going to talk about the commutative property, the associative property, the identity property, and the inverse property. So let's come back up here. So the commutative property and the associative property and the identity property and the inverse property all exist for addition and for multiplication. So let's look at what the commutative property of addition looks like. So we have A plus B equals B plus A, which we know to be true. Now for multiplication, it's the same type of a thing. A times B is also the same thing as B times our A. And so I like to think that it's okay to communicate, and it takes two people to communicate. So let's move down to the associative property. So the associative property is a little bit different. So here we're going to start off saying that we have A plus B. We're going to do that first, and then we're going to add C to that. And the associative property says that I could actually add B and C together first, and then add A, and those would give me the same answers. And the same holds for multiplication, just with multiplication. So here we see if I take A and B and multiply them together first, and then multiply C, that should be equal to the value I get when I multiply B and C together first, and then multiply A. So let's think about, or let's go down to our identity property and our inverse property. So the identity property is saying if I have A, what could I add to A so that my answer was still A, which is 0. 0 plus A equals A. Now for multiplication, I'm going to ask myself the same question but without addition. I want to know A times what will equal A. And in this instance, the answer is 1. Now our inverse property of addition is having me ask the question, A plus what will give me 0? And so we know that A plus negative A gives us 0. And again, the inverse property of multiplication asks us a similar question, except it says with multiplication. So A times what will give us, but not 0, 1. A times what will give us 1. And this answer is going to be 1 over A. So the reciprocal of A gives a times A will give us a 1. So let's kind of practice these a little bit. Just a couple. Let's practice identifying the property that's being illustrated here. So if we take a look at our example A, it says 7 plus negative 7 equals 0. So what do you think that that is an example of a property of? Well, we see that it's equaling 0, but that it's starting with a number. And we see that that number is then negated. So this looks like it is the inverse property of addition. If we look at example B, it says 7 plus A equals A plus 7. So we look at that. They're equaling each other, and it's not a 0 or a 1. It's not equaling itself. So it looks like we have our first thing plus a different second thing, and then that equals that second thing plus that first thing. What do you think that that is? That's the commutative property of addition. Slight misspelling, there we go. Property of addition. Property of addition. And if they had been multiplied instead, we would have chosen multiplication. But because it had the plus sign, we knew it was addition.